Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fort Worth Roots. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by shopgwdistrict.com. 80 different minority-owned businesses are listing their merchandise. They're going to have something you need, something you want. Go check them out. Our guest today is the owner of HC Universal Network. He's also the host of the Talking Sound podcast and Dudes and Beer. We get into a lot of off-the-wall conversations for this episode. I wasn't expecting half of this, but we made a new friend in the city of Austin, and I'm psyched about that, and I can't wait to have this guy back on. There was just too much interesting stuff that this guy's into to cram into one episode. So, thank y'all for being here, and let's give it up for our guest, Chris Jordan. All right, let's start the show. Bro, you've got some amazing guests on. In fact,
Thank you.
Your last guest with Dudes and Beer, an author that's also hosted a show on the History Channel.
Oh, yeah. Richard B. Spence. Last time he was on, the reason I had him on was like, hey, man, we've got the election coming up. You taught a class for 34 years to master's level students on the history of U.S. and Russo intelligence relations. I would love for you to come on and talk about tampered elections.
Yeah.
And talk about just the history of the U.S. sticking their fingers in other elections around the world.
And that's Dudes and Beers.
Operation Gladio, all kinds of stuff. Oh, yeah. Dudes and Beer is
What's
the show.
the best platform for people to listen to that? Because that
All
looked like
of
an
it.
interesting episode, and I want to go back and listen to the full thing.
We're available on like 35 different platforms. So
Okay.
if you've got a podcast app that you use and you can't find us, please come to dudesandbeer.com and let me know. No, I mean, it's just, for me, all of this, and to bring it back to Richard Spence, to see the fact that history is still being written.
For sure.
Even as he puts it, history is incomplete. At the best, it is our best guess at what we can look at through the past and see. At our best guess. We aren't those people. We don't know the filter through which they saw things.
That's very important.
You know? Without knowing all of that, you're really getting an incomplete view of history.
Yeah. Even somebody that's spent their entire life looking at history has got a totally open and unending problem in front of them.
My favorite quote from him was that after 35 years of teaching this, the only thing I am sure of is that there is nothing beyond possibility.
Right.
That's the only thing he's sure of.
Was he speaking about something specifically?
He was speaking specifically about just the world of intelligentsia to begin with.
Okay.
Just the alphabet agencies on both sides of the pond, on all ponds that do this stuff. And in addition to that, just the world of conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Because even now, and I'm sorry to say that on your show.
No.
Well, you say that, but that is actively a keyword now.
Uh-oh.
All of about a year and a half ago, there was a memorandum put out by the FBI that it was about 6 months before the raid on Area 51.
Damn.
That the FBI put out a memorandum stating that conspiracy theory is now a form of domestic terrorism.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's why we started using the term conspiracy hypothesis on my show.
Okay.
Because by all scientific method, it's hypothesis than theory.
Sure.
And you're allowed to hypothesize any damn thing you want, because now you need theories to prove the hypothesis in order to make it a law.
Right.
That's how that works.
Are you talking, when you say the Area 51 raid, are you talking about the internet, what do you call that? The viral thing that was going on. They had a date set. There was going to be a bunch of nerds show up and rush the gate.
The Naruto run. Yeah. The Naruto run. Where it's like, let's just rush the gates like Naruto. And that dude is connected to one of my connections.
The guy that set it up?
Yeah.
Where's
the guy
he
who
from?
originally said that. From the Phoenix area.
Yeah.
He had people in vans show up at his house
Yeah, I'm sure he got his ass in a sling. That was not good.
You realize that you just invited people to create an incursion on a secure facility, right? But aside from that, I was like, look at the nefarious means that they just went through by 6 months before that, declaring conspiracy theory as a form of domestic terrorism. Now, anybody that goes to that is definitely a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. That means we, by all definition of Patriot Act and everything else, can just gather their data from their phones as soon as they come in range.
Well, that got handled very quietly, didn't it?
It sure did.
I didn't hear anything about it.
There were maybe 1,000 people that showed up.
Yeah,
maybe.
Oh no, I mean them passing whatever provision to make that a terrorist.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
I spend a lot of time in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Love Vegas. It's a great city.
You blackjack man?
No.
Okay.
No. Not really a big gambler.
Okay.
Though I'll blow some money on machines because I'll just sit there and drink and play machines. Why not?
What takes that lady so long with the drinks?
Yeah.
Where is she?
You put money in the machine is what takes so long. The trick is to play the machines up at the bar.
So what are you doing in Vegas if you're not at the slots full time?
Working most of the time.
That's
like
what I figured.
10, 12-hour days, stuff like that. So
you're there for Cher and Brittany? You doing shows for them?
No. Most of my shows fly in the high-end corporate realm.
Yeah.
So shows like CES, like Consumer Electronics Show, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And walking there, it was probably about 6 months before my son was born. My wife flew out to meet me. I was on night shifts. So I was like, why don't you fly out? You could go out to dinner with some of the crew or whatnot, get to know them. They'd love to meet you. And you and I can just walk the strip, do whatever during the day, go out and have lunch. So that's what we did. As we walked by a typical exit in the Venetian complex, I pointed at a sports bar on our left. I was like, I've had beers in there a couple times. I've talked about, maybe going in there and talking to the manager about doing some Dudes and Beer episodes from there.
Yeah.
It's always a decent way to have a tab comped for an evening.
Sure.
Got a few thousand people that listen. Well, gladly come in and talk about your place all night. Nice. Can we interview your head chef? All kinds of stuff. So we went out, walked around Caesars, few hours. As we walked back by, I got an alert on my phone that the restaurant had liked the Dudes and Beer podcast on Facebook. I had not been on social media in this time period.
You hadn't talked to him yet?
Walked by with my phone in my pocket.
What?
That's how deep these little threads go. Because, you can pay for microphones to be active near your location on social media accounts.
Shit.
So, you can pay for all that on the back end. It's wild stuff.
I think most people have seen something like that go on with their search
engines. It used to be, quote, crazy talk, but people see it more and more now.
Listen, the big companies are openly admitting that they have these algorithms and that they're listening to it. I mean, Samsung televisions, like that one over there, they openly admit that they have listening devices.
2011.
But it's not picking up your actual audio. Sure. It's picking up the wave format or something. They made it sound like it's listening, but it's not actually recording.
Yeah, it's listening. I mean, it's not. Now, granted, if it's a smart TV and connected to the internet, that data's going somewhere.
Yeah. Elon Musk, he made a statement.
Oh, he's great.
He was asked, do you think it's too late for us to make provisions and pass laws to protect us against AI? And he said, yeah, it's too late. I tried to warn people. Yep. The genie's already out of the bottle.
It probably is. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. One of my favorite conferences that I got to work over the last many years was the NVIDIA conference. Okay. I got to work that on both coasts.
That's the graphic card producer.
Graphic card company.
Yeah.
And what's so dope about NVIDIA Con is like the people that exhibit in my rooms, in the small rooms on the side. Like the big announcements are dope. Who doesn't like to see the head of NVIDIA come out and dance on stage and here's the new toys. Check it out. They're Star Wars branded. Yeah. 1080 Ti's. Watch out. But to see the guys in the small breakout rooms where it's like, yeah, this luncheon is sponsored by Lockheed today and the International Drone Society.
Jesus.
And we're going to be talking about terabytes of information that we are gathering via 5G. Like the two of them went and tested their new 5G system with NVIDIA cards, using NVIDIA cards to process the data. They outfitted all of the F1 cars that were in the race a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we're processing all of the data points from every single one of those cars in real time.
So
yeah.
A lot going on.
Just insane. And to see people coming in and like, okay, so right now we're looking at a live surface map of the sun. It's like, are you live mapping the surface of the sun right now in this room? Like,
still an 8-minute delay, right? Have we got that figured out?
Yeah. They got that, but it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Like, man, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is possible with what is on the shelf. Well, that was 5 years ago.
So we're probably
maybe
a little
4
more
years
advanced
ago.
now.
And at that point, the head of Lockheed Martin was up on stage, or at least that development department was up on stage with the head of the International Drone Society talking about the new human versus drone racing league that was about to happen.
For drones.
So, well, I mean, there's the drone racing league, but this was the human versus drone racing league.
Right. But and this is for the
Yeah, except like there will be human teams with drones, and then there will be automated drones.
What's your bet?
And they
Who's
are competing against each other. It's already happened. The best Air Force pilot was taken out by a drone.
Oh, I did hear
5
about
times
this.
out of 7.
Was this in the F-35?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shit. So they rigged up a drone pilot for an F-35.
Yeah.
Holy God. And
Yeah.
it beat our best Air Force pilot.
It beat the best pilot.
Was he having an off day maybe?
I don't know. It beat him. I want to say 5 times out of 7. It was pretty nasty. It was not a pretty defeat.
How wild is that?
And all of 2015, I think, was the announcement that the first computer had passed the Turing Test, which Alan Turing was the gentleman who, broke the code in World War II and really created the first mechanical computer, as we know it now, that processed ones and zeros by flipping switches on and off.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I understand the Turing Test is a couple of sci-fi movies I've seen.
Yeah. Blade Runner, things like that. And it's basically the concept that blind without seeing what's on the other side, if you ask these questions, this machine would respond in a way that is human, in a way good enough that it would fool the human.
Right.
And that happened in 2015.
Right.
That was the first time that like a computer with all bells and whistles finally passed the Turing test, where it was like, wow, I had no idea that was a machine on the other side.
You're starting to kind of freak me out, Chris.
The answer happened so quick. Well, it is one of those things. I found it odd that nobody's ears really perked up when in 2011 the UN declared an intergalactic ambassador.
Who is it?
I forget. I want to say it is a woman from South Korea.
Let's look it up. Here, this looks more substantial. This is CBS News. United Nations appointing ambassador to alien worlds? ? And Malaysian astrophysicist Maslin Othman may add a new job to her resume. She is currently director of the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs.
Yep.
Let's see, I don't want to get in trouble for not citing the people. This was CBS News by Edward Moyer, Moyer, November 22nd, 2011. So, yeah.
Wow, man, I even got the year right.
You did.
Yeah.
Score.
Yeah, things like that happen all the time. But the thing is, like, it's one thing to be a newsie and to read the news, things like that. Good on you if you buy a newspaper, folks. Keep buying them. Print is so important. It's not dead.
Is it now?
I see you've got a copy of the DFW Times up on your wall there.
Yeah, that's whenever we printed news.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, news is still printed. And if you want to read news. Seriously, read news. Go out there, find you a good RSS reader. I use Feedly. Go to the news sources that you like, and at the top, do a /feed. And most of the time, you're going to hit their RSS feed.
Okay.
Now, once you've got that RSS reader, your world of news changes. Because unfortunately, whenever you watch the news, whenever you listen to the news, there are maybe 2 or 3 stories. Unless something major breaking happens during the day, by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, news cycle is decided.
Well, we don't get any. I noticed this in 2006, whenever I came back from my first deployment. There were a lot of different things that were going on. Big things, big stories, big names. I mean, there was a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then whenever we got stateside, Britney Spears shaving her head.
Yeah.
And that,
roll with that for 3 days.
And I came to the realization that 98% of what was happening on the news back in 2006 wasn't news at all. It was who does all the paparazzi crap?
TMZ.
It was all TMZ.
In the times of Edward R. Murrow, it was the facts and only the facts. This is what we're going to report.
Right.
And you make up your own mind from the facts we present you.
Right.
That is no longer the case. I hate to tell you, folks.
Well, it hasn't been.
As someone who
for a
worked
really long
in
time.
mainstream media and non-mainstream media, nope.
So what you were talking about with the /feed, could you go to like www.cbs.com/feed?
Yep.
Is that how you would do that?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. And then
Yep.
what's going to show up? Just all the raw stories, or
It'll be, like,
straight from the journalist, or
yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, what you're going to see on their website is not what you're going to see
right,
on the news.
because it's being handpicked.
Well,
right?
because they've got an hour.
Yeah.
Either that or they're trying to draw out a story all day long. Whenever you watch a 24-hour news station, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, doesn't matter. Their job is to find 2 or 3 stories and ride that pony till the saddle wears out. And even living in the DFW area, whenever the police shooting happened.
Yeah. Were you there for that?
A few years ago. No, but I was watching it live. And I remember at the time I had a co-host on Dudes and Beer, Stephen Bishop. And
Hey, Stephen.
Hey, bud. He was on his way back from work, and it was like 11:30 at night on a Monday. And he was like, dude, are you watching this? I was outside, like, chain smoking cigarettes with my door open, watching the news and watching the police choppers and news choppers. And they had the dude, like, cornered in the parking structure.
Yeah.
And then they just sent in a drone with a grenade and grenaded him, like, on live TV. And it was like, he was there with me. And I was like, did that just happen?
Is that the first verified, like, civilian
Yes.
robot murder?
On American soil.
Yeah.
Like, drone killed on television. Nobody seems to remember it.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Like, and it's one of those, like, wait a minute. And granted, one dude with some ammunition. All right. There are 12 of you. You got him cornered from both sides.
Well, the issue was, and I understand.
And granted, you have a much greater tactical mind than I.
Well,
I guarantee you.
You know, it's fairly simple. Okay, you got 2 issues here. One, how do we protect the lives of the officers that are supposed to be taking this guy into custody? That's the goal, right?
To take him into custody.
No more loss of life.
Yes.
Take him into custody.
Yes.
Okay, that's the goal. All right. So, and then we have the other issue, which is, you know, is it legal? Is it morally okay to use a robot to blow someone up?
Yeah.
You know, so
like major moral quandary here.
I understand both sides of it. Now, if I'm going to put my vote in one of the 2 hats, I want to take care of those officers.
Sure.
They showed up to work today and, you know, they deserve to go home to their families.
Absolutely.
You know, so if I have to say, all right, we have to get that guy out of there. He's not going to drop his weapon. We've been talking to him for hours. All he's doing is shooting back.
Who knew that they carried actual grenades?
Well, I mean, it's not
like
it's
fragmentation grenades.
So I mean, those drones, they've got actuators on them.
Oh yeah.
So it would not be hard to rig up a wire to a pin, and
this was like one of the bomb squad robots,
right?
It like reached in with one and granted, they've got explosive devices because they use smaller explosives to take out the bigger
shape
ones.
charge with a detonator,
all kinds of
extend
things.
the arm, sure.
But yeah, that was just one of those moments that resonated with me. Did you grow up in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you actively had to pass government and economics to graduate.
Allegedly.
Did you pass government and economics?
I doubt it. Yeah. I don't know.
I remember working really, really hard to get a D+ in economics. And it wasn't for not knowing the information. I got over 100 on my final. Mm-hmm. It was just that I never did my homework.
Yeah.
So the best I could start out was a 75.
Further we move away from those days, the foggier my recollection gets of the details. Yeah. But we really should harp on that. I look back at my education, which is limited, but it's surprising the stuff that we don't teach the kids.
Yeah.
And I think there should be a lot more emphasis on history.
There needs to be an emphasis on history, and really that disassociated view of history. I think that's to kind of loop back to our conversation earlier with the religion of history, the religion of science. We have these very, very hard rules by which we want to define things, and it's either right or it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's kind of like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's really a shit ton of gray. Pardon my language on your show.
No, you're fine. You're in good company.
But there's how gray? Charcoal. It's a gray. Should we have done it? Shouldn't we have done it? Should we allow robots to grenade people to save people? Or, should we throw a non-volatile in there and, make the guy surrender somehow.
Yeah.
The way that we do with every crowd situation. I guess the tear gas is good enough for 100 people, but for that one dude in a stairwell, way too much.
You're right, man. If he's not used to CS gas, they could have dropped a can of CS on him.
Absolutely.
He'd have come out screaming.
And that's the one that gets me all the time is that, people are like, this is illegal to use. And no, it isn't. It's illegal to use in war. Mm-hmm. You cannot use it in a war theater. You can't use tear gas, but it is utterly legal for civilian use. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you can go and look on Google right now and find the C9 containers that the police use. Mm-hmm. You can buy them.
For home use?
Yeah.
Hey, folks.
Long as you got a law enforcement certificate, you can buy your own tear gas.
Here's a pro tip for the listeners. If you got kids and they're out on holiday and you're trying to find a way to entertain them, get one of those canisters of gas and let them light one off.
Yeah. There you go.
Get the cameras ready.
Yeah.
You're going to want to film this.
I fortunately did not do the video that I wanted to do at the beginning of all the pandemic, which was the Lysol challenge, where it's who's going to huff a bottle of Lysol with me to make sure that you're all clean on the inside and antiseptic?
Weren't they doing that? Lighting it
and
on
then
fire?
People started doing it, and I was like, oh no, thank God I didn't do that video. My wife was so right. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not smart, Chris.
Chris, tell me a little more about Dudes and Beer. I want to know the full scope of that because I dove into some of them, but I didn't get a chance
Dudes
to
and
listen
Beer,
to all of it.
Has really, really morphed into a show that I've wanted to do my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM, Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells, shows like that really cover fringe topics.
Is this podcast stuff? Is this radio stuff? I'm sorry for my ignorance.
Most of that is radio or online radio.
Okay.
They skirt the world of podcasts because they come from the world of broadcast. So they've just always had people that are like, yeah, absolutely, we'll have your show on our network.
Okay.
So they don't have a problem. Podcast was really for a long time kind of that Wild West world where
Still kind of is, right?
Still kind of is. But there's a lot out there now that can really knock you down pretty quick. Like algorithmically. Hey,
what should I watch out for?
Dudes and Beer, 3 episodes ago, my episode on end time prophecies with my exorcist that I have on was banned in 9 countries.
Slow down, Chris. What do you mean you had an exorcist on?
Oh, I have an exorcist on my show regularly. I love having an exorcist on speed dial on my phone. It's dope. Oh man, I got some crazy connections on my phone, brother.
We're gonna have to do this regularly. I think I'm thinking we might have to sit down more often.
Yeah. I've got a guy who is an archbishop in the Order of Saint Michael.
Of course you
and an exorcist and demonologist. He came on my show to talk about end time prophecy.
Okay.
And I was like, I've always wanted to do a show on this. I'd love to do it. He's like, let's do it.
Now this kind of falls in line with like the Book of Revelations.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a big conversation at the beginning of the show because a big thing I like to do is we can rabbit hole all day, but before we do, let's make sure that we understand, folks, that we are here to learn.
Sure.
Do these things exist? Yes. Let's look at them through the eyes and the lens of history. Okay. Let's look at them from the filter of the people that lived them, the world that they lived in. That's what you had to understand.
So in this instance, you're talking about exorcists and their lens?
Well, more the end time prophecy.
Oh, okay.
More things like the Book of Revelations.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it was written by some people that were living through some pretty horrible religious persecution at the time.
Right.
Anything to give you a little bit of help and hope would be nice.
Consider the source.
Yes, exactly. And consider the filter of the source.
Right.
You know, consider the eyes of the people that wrote it and try to see it through theirs. Well, that episode got banned in 9 countries. Because, of course, we're talking about end-time prophecy. That's going to bring up things like Israel. It's going to bring up things like Iran, Iraq. A lot of Muslim countries like that will not allow talk about end-time prophecy. So, I got to contact my priest friend who's an exorcist and be like, hey, Padre, welcome to the band club.
Now,
you are one of my many guests that's been banned somewhere on the globe.
I want to hear more about this, but... How do you know that you got banned? Like, what happens? Do you get a notification?
Yeah. You get a notification, content disallowed.
Is this on YouTube or?
YouTube, various other platforms.
Wow.
Yeah. YouTube, iTunes, all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. I mean, it's, we're very fortunate. And I tell people all the time, the First and the Second Amendment are the most important to me.
Damn
the freedom
right.
to protect yourself and the freedom to say what you want.
Freedom to tell the King of England to get the hell out of your house. It's what we have.
Yeah. You know what the King of England doesn't have? 13 colonies.
That's right.
I saw that the other day. I was like, that's great.
This is one of my favorite scenes ever from The Simpsons is whenever he gets his gun and he's walking around the house like shooting light switches on and opening cans of beer with it. Dad, that's not what that's used for. How do you know what it's used for? Huh? Like poking her with the gun.
It's on The Simpsons? God.
Without a gun, the King of England could just walk right into your house. You want that? No. All right, then. There is no King of England,
Crap,
Homer.
where were we going before that? Before
Sorry.
I off
I derailed
No,
you.
I think I'm responsible for that one.
We were going into banned episodes, things like that.
That's right. But anyway, we have some freedoms here that other countries don't. So it makes sense that if you say the wrong thing, it can't air in certain countries.
Yeah.
Or might be taken off the platform entirely.
That was a lot of the roots of Dudes and Beer. As someone who was a student of philosophy, student of theology, for me, discourse is the primary thing. Even if we disagree, I don't care.
Yeah.
I still want to discourse. I want to know what you believe and why you believe it.
Yeah.
For no other reason than to know what you believe and why you believe it. I have no ulterior motive.
I'm starting to see a trend with podcasters. The subject of being comfortable in the uncomfortable conversation keeps coming up. And I mean,
absolutely.
The episode I edited today, that's going to be released on, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then an episode I did months ago with a friend of mine, and it just keeps coming up. But
there's a reason why nerds and geeks rule the world, man. Really and honestly, it's because inside we're all a nerd, we're all a geek.
Yeah.
Like if John Hughes taught us nothing, it's the fact that we're all a geek. We all have that. John Hughes.
Breakfast Club?
Breakfast Club, exactly. Yeah, that's the lesson of Breakfast Club, is that we're all a jock.
Yeah.
We're all the outcast. We're all the preppy kid. Like, there's that facet of all of us. It's just which time you spend more time polishing.
Sure.
Wild stuff.
Damn, Chris.
Happened right here.
You're an encyclopedia, man.
People forget about this stuff. Like, it's crazy.
Well,
so
and you know, with the way things are going, and with the way our society is kind of pulling stuff out of history books, media, old movies, cartoons,
selective editing.
Selective editing. These conversations are going to become more and more important.
It's interesting because that's actively how the winners are chosen.
Meaning?
That's how history's written, quite literally. You know, like that's a big problem that a lot of people have with the Catholic Church. And the fact that they removed books from what was considered the Bible. I mean, it wasn't the Bible yet. It was when they were making the Bible. But it was like, well, only these 2 or 3 sects over here in like Eurasia read that. The rest of us don't ascribe to that. So, let's toss the Gospel of Mary over here. Let's toss the Gospel of, Judas over here.
Wow.
All that stuff. So there are numerous other little gospels and things like that that are written, that are out there, that are just considered part of the, quote, apocrypha. It's where that word apocryphal comes from.
Really?
It's things that are not allowed, knowledge that is forbidden. So, yeah.
I have to look into that.
Wild stuff. But, yeah, I mean, you have to be real careful whenever you're, quote, editing history, because that history could be very easily forgotten.
Well, the people that are pulling it out, they want it forgotten. That's why it's getting removed, right?
In theory, yeah. In theory. And, I mean, the question is, should it be something that is forgotten? That's really the quandary that we put ourselves in.
Who gets to decide?
Who gets to decide that?
Yeah.
Are we doomed to fail and repeat the same action because it's just not there?
Well, that's the idea, right?
Is that the overarching plan to begin with? Oh, now you get real nefarious, see?
Chris, can I have you back on the show?
Anytime, buddy.
All right.
Anytime.
And you made the drive to see me today. Maybe I'll have to return the favor.
Sure.
Now, I one of your videos, I saw the impressive studio you have. So I was feeling very inadequate today with this little thing. These are, cheap little microphones. I'm getting headsets. So and I've got a buddy that's, hey Lucas, got some really nice headsets, and he let me try them on and record the last episode with them. And
they the Audio Technicas?
I think that's it. Yeah. And man, they are just
like
awesome.
ESPN style.
Because this isn't comfortable.
They're okay. It's all right. It works. It gets the job done. I myself have, I don't know how many SM58s kicking around my house from years of doing a rock and roll and all that stuff. So.
This is really the prize right here.
Oh, that's the bee's knees, baby.
These are, these are second rate, but this is top of the line. So
it really is. And as someone, even whenever people ask me, what should I get? That is hands down where I send them.
Yeah.
I could send them down the rabbit hole of, you need this interface, you need this board. If you're trying to do 6 different Skype guests and cross-feeding all of them to each other and doing 6 different mix minuses, we need a real soundboard.
And I don't know what any of that is.
Yeah. Oh, we'll teach you. This does that for you, so you don't need that. And that's what's great. I tell people all the time when I was on broadcast, this has everything that was at my disposal.
Yeah.
I have the ability to make a phone call. I have the ability to take a Skype guest, the ability to play sounds off a computer, the soundboard that I have there for whatever I want.
Right. Yeah. Every podcaster I bring on and they start talking about this, Rode ought to start being a sponsor on this show. They really should, because we always talk about this.
I think everybody wants that right now.
Well, Chris, throw out some plugs, man. Your website,
self-promotion time.
HC Universal Network. You want to send folks that way?
Oh, absolutely. HC Universal Network has tons of great content, everything from Dudes and Beer and Talking Sound, comedy stuff, spiritual stuff.
Your network. I went ahead and, of course, I made a bunch of notes that I didn't need because we had no trouble keeping the conversation going. But you have, I wrote down 8 different shows here, I think, that y'all have on your network. Yeah. Do you guys kind of do some cross promotional stuff or
here and there? Yeah. Some of the hosts will hop out and appear on other shows, all that kind of stuff.
Now, what kind of person would go to the HC Universal Network to look at your list of podcasts? Anybody
who likes podcasts.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on the content that you want. We have everything from news and politics to Scary Dad, all about horror and pop culture, stuff like that. Gentlemen No Class, which is basically just some guys sitting around having beers, talking about things. Dudes and Beer, which started out as that and has really become a drilled in, focused show with guests talking about like authors, things like that, talking about important fringe topics.
Yeah.
So
some that we might have touched on tonight.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Well, we could spend another 8 hours talking about things like Exorcist and government conspiracies, conspiracy hypothesis.
I'll be having episode 300 come up soon.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
That is awesome. Is that Dudes and Beer? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That should be a 5-hour episode, if I'm not mistaken. We're gonna have everything from human trafficking, targeted individuals. Hopefully, be talking with Graham Phillips about the Lost Ark of the Covenant. Just all kinds of good stuff. So, it's going to be an action-packed episode.
You might get some white vans pulling up to your house.
I get plenty of them. Probably my craziest episode by far was when all the fracas started here recently with the riots and all that in Minnesota.
Yeah.
When all that first popped off, it came across the radar that Anonymous had hacked the Minneapolis Police Department.
Really?
And I was contacted through one of my other contacts in the NSA that one of their contacts with them wanted to come on my show.
To what end?
To basically use my show as a platform to address the Minneapolis Police Department, to inform them of what they had.
Oh, my God.
And the fact that if there were not arrest warrants released, that they would be going after the Minneapolis Police Department and releasing everything that they had acquired in their hack. It was a wild moment in my life. About 20, 30 minutes before we went live, my site came under active DDoS attack.
What is that?
Direct denial of service. It's basically where hackers are using a tiny snippet of code from this node, that node, that node, that node. They basically flood your channel with so much inconsequential traffic that it clogs up the line and shuts down the service. So I actively had members of Anonymous in the background while we were live, like,
am I going to get away?
Pushing people away from my podcast website.
Half of this recording, I've been thinking in the back of my mind, like, nothing's actually hooked up to the internet, so this conversation won't get me in trouble yet.
Well, and that's why I made sure to clear it up and say conspiracy hypothesis, because your phone was listening.
Yeah, I know. My TV, my toaster, the bananas I bought this morning.
Well, don't go into bananas, bro.
Okay, bananas next time. Chris, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And seriously, if you want to have me on your podcast, if
anytime,
if that'll add value to your community, I'm happy to do it. And then I'd love to have you back on in the very near future.
Great.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Fort Worth Roots. Thank y'all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Heck yeah, man, that was super fun. And that is basically what used to happen.
Another big thank you to our guest today, Chris Jordan. Thank you for coming on the show, man. I can't wait to have you back on. Y'all don't forget hcuniversalnetwork.com to find all of Chris Jordan's content and to find a full directory of the podcast that he networks with. There's everything you could think of. People talking about religion, politics, guys just sitting around drinking and talking crap. So, and just as a reminder, I don't want to put up a paywall for people to have to worry about or anything like that, but I do want to make sure these episodes are convenient enough that you can digest on your way to work or in a short amount of time. You don't have to devote 3 hours to listen to one of these episodes. So with that in mind, I've trimmed these down, and those are the regular episodes going on the podcast. But if you can't get enough of one of the episodes, you want to hear more, there's always the full episode, basically unedited, that we put up on the Patreon account. So there's that. Also, if you're watching the video on YouTube, we do have a podcast. If you're listening to the podcast and you'd like to see my beautiful face, it's on YouTube. So either way, we're out there all over the place, all the social medias, all the stuff. Thank y'all so much for listening to the podcast. You're the reason I do this, and I will see you next week. Thanks again. Bye.